I'm Sanjeev Puri, Assistant Professor of Physics from Government College Nagrota Bagwa, Himachal Pradesh. And my topic is Coriolis force, which is non-inertial force, and I'll discuss in the next slides. The next slide. The Coriolis force, it is an apparent force. It is apparent because it appears to act on a body, even in the absence of the real force. So it is an apparent force, and the fellow Gaspard Gustave Coriolis, he was the fellow who first of all discovered this force. So it was named after his name. So it is an apparent force which appears, and there is no force acting in reality. Why it is acting? It's acting because of the acceleration of the frame of reference. The acceleration may be linear acceleration or it may be rotation. And here I'm considering the rotation of the coordinate system, rotation of the frame of reference. And in the next slides, I'll consider Earth as a rotating frame of reference. What it does, it makes a moving object to deflect from its path. Had that Coriolis force were not there, the path it would have followed. Now, in the presence of the Coriolis force, it will get deflected from the path. Now, what are the factors? Factors responsible for the Coriolis force. There are the four factors. One is mass of the particle which is moving. The angular velocity of the rotating frame of reference. And in the next slides, I will consider Earth as a rotating frame of reference. V is the velocity of the particle, and phi will be the latitude of the place. So here we have for discussion, if I consider a rotating frame, a table rotating, and I roll down a piece of chalk, a particle level, and if I suppose the table is not rotating and I roll a particle, it will follow a straight path from A to B, this dashed line that is showing that the particle is following a straight path. Now I consider the table to be rotating. Now it's rotating, suppose, about its axis. This is the axis of the frame of reference. Now this table is acting as a frame of reference. Now when the table is rotating and the particle is rolled, now it will not follow a straight path, it will get deflected. The solid line shows that it gets deflected. Had the table were not rotating, it would have followed a straight path, the dotted path, but because of the rotation of the table, the rotating frame of reference, the particle gets deflected. The solid line is showing that it gets deflected because of the Coriolis force. Next slide. Now, the magnitude of the Coriolis force, that depends on three factors. One is the angular velocity. Angular velocity, that means that defines the rotation of Earth about its own axis. If the rotation is fast, that means it rotates fast, then bigger will be the Coriolis force. Why? Because Coriolis force that is directly proportional to the angular velocity in magnitude. Second, V is the speed of the object, the particle, which is moving on the surface of Earth. V is the velocity of the particle with respect to Earth. So, if greater is the speed of the particle, bigger is the speed, bigger will be the effect. It's directly proportional to V. Now, third factor, that is the latitude, phi. If I consider the equator, here equator, the latitude will be 0. Here it's pole, the latitude will be 90, and it is the northern hemisphere. And if I consider the southern hemisphere, this is the southern hemisphere. So similarly, the latitude that will be increasing in this sense as well. So when phi increases, sine phi will increase, and the latitude effect, what will be the latitude effect? The Coriolis force will increase. So it will be minimum, the Coriolis force will be minimum at equator and maximum at poles. Next slide. So here we have two factors, the latitude factor and the velocity factor. Here the velocity, I am considering the unit as a knot, nautical mile per hour. So 1 nautical mile is 1.852 kilometers. The knot is 1.852 kilometers per hour. So if I consider 10 nautical miles per hour, 20 knots, 40 knots. So here I'm considering increase in the velocity. Here I'm considering latitude. What happens? The Coriolis force with the increase in the latitude, that increases, and with the increase in the speed, that's also increases. Here we have 10 knots, here we have 20 knots, here we have 40 knots, and for a given latitude, say 60, the Coriolis force will be this much, and for 20 knots, Coriolis force will be this much, and for 40 knots, Coriolis force will be still greater. So it's increasing. It's increasing at the same latitude, and if I increase the latitude, then Coriolis force is also increasing. So here I'm considering Earth, and it is the equator. There will be no Coriolis force, and when I move away from the equator, the latitude is increasing. The Coriolis force will increase in amount by amount, and at the equator it will be 0. Of course, the direction to which the Coriolis force will act, that will be different in the two Earths. It will be right to the motion in the northern hemisphere, and it will be left to the motion in the southern hemisphere. Next slide, please. So in the northern hemisphere, if I consider northern hemisphere, the deflection will be right to the motion. It will be in accordance with the formula minus 2m omega v sine phi, and omega vector cross v vector rather in vectorial form. The vector will finally decide, will show in which direction the Coriolis force is going to act. So if I calculate that, then the force will be right to the motion in the northern hemisphere and left to the motion in the southern hemisphere. So in the two hemispheres, the force will be opposite. In the northern, it will be right to the motion, and in the southern, it will be the left to the motion. And that's why the hurricanes, they spin differently in the northern and the southern hemispheres. So I'm considering next slide now. So here we have its equator. So at equator there will be no Coriolis force, and it is the northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere. So see, when I'm considering the northern hemisphere, suppose wind is blowing in this direction. It's blowing from northern to the north pole to the equator, then it will get deflected along this direction. It will be right to the motion. Here, suppose it's moving towards the north pole, again it's going to get deflected to right to the motion. Here, right to the motion. So in northern hemisphere, the Coriolis force is going to act right to the motion. However, in the southern hemisphere, if I consider, suppose the wind is blowing towards the equator from south pole to the equator, then this force will be in this direction. It's left to the motion. Here is also, it is also left to the motion. Here it is also left to the motion. So what we can say, in the northern hemisphere, the force will be right to the motion, and in the southern hemisphere, the force will be left to the motion. Now I'm moving to the next slide. So I'm considering this north pole. Suppose this is the starting point. Aeroplane, anybody that's moving, so it starts from this point and it has to reach this point. It's the destination. Here we have aeroplane, here we have aeroplane, here we have aeroplane, but the latitudes are different. Here the latitude is 0 because it is equator. Here the latitude is greater. Here it's still greater and it's the maximum. So if I consider at equator, there will be no Collis force. So the aeroplane or object that will follow a straight path and it is no deflection over here. But if I consider a latitude, not 0, not at equator, so if this aeroplane that is moving towards that destination and we are not considering Collis force into account, then it's not going to follow this path from this point to this point. It will not follow this path. It will follow a slightly deviated path, the yellow one line. So it will get deviated and it is not going to reach the destination, the red spot. It will get deflected by this much amount. And if I consider the aeroplane at a still greater latitude, so the deflection will be more. It's going to be still away from the destination. So as we move away from the equator towards the North Pole, the deflection of the aeroplane, that is going to be more and more. So it's showing that the deflection is increasing. Here it is 0, here it has increased a bit, here it is more, and still more near the poles. So the deflection will increase as we move from the equator to the poles. So this depicts that. Next slide. We are moving now. Now we are considering the centripetal force and centrifugal force concept. Suppose a particle is to follow a circular path. Suppose it cannot follow unless it is having some force towards the center along the radius. So if we tie some stone, suppose through a string, then what happens? The tension in the string that provides the centripetal force. So the centripetal force is a center seeking force. That means it is required force so that the particle moves along a circular path and it is toward the center along the radius. Now there is another force, the centrifugal force. If we still consider that stone tied to string and we are moving it around a circular path, then what the person will feel? The person will feel something is there which is pulling it out. The stone that is being pulled out. That means a force. The stone, it is being experienced by the stone in the outward direction along the radius, opposite to centripetal force, of course, but along the radius, and it is opposite to centripetal force and equal to centripetal force. Then the particle is going to follow a circular path, but centrifugal force is opposite to the centripetal force. So we must consider the centrifugal force as well as centripetal force while considering the motion of particle along a circular path. Now we are moving to the next slide. So we have what is the origin of the centripetal force. Here, if I consider, here we have two forces rather, the pressure gradient force and the Collis force. So what is the pressure gradient force? If I consider a low pressure region over here, then force will, here we have suppose 840, here it is 850 millibar. Millibar is unit of pressure. Here it is 854 millibar. So that means here the pressure is low, here the pressure is increasing, here the pressure is still increasing. So it's a low pressure region. It is a low pressure region, suppose. So there will be a pressure gradient force toward the low pressure region in this direction. This red arrow that is showing that the pressure gradient force is towards the center. It is rather towards the low pressure region. And if I consider high pressure region over here, then still the force will be, the pressure gradient force will be from higher pressure to the lower pressure. It's again towards the lower pressure region. So it will be from higher pressure to lower pressure. And here it is also from higher pressure to lower pressure. The lower pressure is towards the center, and here low pressure is outwards in the outward direction. So pressure gradient force here, it is towards the center, and pressure gradient force, it's away from the center. Now I'm considering the wind flowing towards the low pressure, because the wind will also will always follow path from higher pressure region to the low pressure region. So wind is trying to flow from high pressure region to the low pressure region, but while moving, it will experience Coriolis force. Coriolis force to right to the motion. Right now, I'm considering the North Pole, so the Coriolis force will be right to the motion, right to the motion, right to the motion. So it will not. It's not going to follow straight path. It will follow some curved path. So finally, what will happen? It's going to have a cyclonic flow because of this Coriolis force. Coriolis force acting toward this direction, and the pressure gradient force is acting toward this direction. Of course, the pressure gradient force is more than the centrifugal force, and that's why this net resultant is toward the center, and that is acting as a centripetal force. The net force, that is centripetal force, because of which the wind is circulating around this low pressure region. Otherwise, if I consider high pressure region, the wind will blow from high pressure region to the low pressure region. So it will move away from the center. So the force, Coriolis force, is right to the motion. So if it is right to the motion, then it's when it's moving away from this, the Coriolis force is this direction. So it's going to have a cyclonic flow. So if I have a high pressure region, and we consider Coriolis force and the pressure gradient force into account, then it's going to follow a circular path, of course, but it's anti-cyclonic flow, and the centrifugal force is going to be more than the pressure gradient force. So it's going to follow this path. But here it's the pressure gradient force which is more, and centrifugal force is less. So it's also going to follow this circular path, but it's cyclonic and it is anti-cyclonic flow. So moving to the next slide now. So what I have discussed. So if we have pressure gradient force and Coriolis force, competition between two, that will show what kind of wind that will be there. So if I consider pressure gradient force that completely balances the Coriolis force, then it is going to be geostrophic winds. It's not going to follow a curved path. It will be a straight one. So it will be a geostrophic wind. But if the pressure gradient force is not equal to Coriolis force, then the gradient wind will be there. And if the pressure gradient force is greater than the Coriolis force, then it's going to be cyclone. And if pressure gradient force is less than the Coriolis force, it's going to be anticyclone. And in the next slides, I will consider the surface winds and the vertical motion as well. So we are moving to the next slide. So now we are considering the geostrophic winds, the direction. What happens in the geostrophic winds? The pressure gradient force is equal to the centrifugal force. Both are going to balance each other. In magnitude, they're equal, but negative sign shows they're in opposite direction. So they will balance each other, and the wind will follow a straight path. That happens typically at an altitude greater than 1 kilometer. So here we have 9.8 millibar. Here we have 9.4 millibar. This line is 904 millibar, and this is isobar because the pressure is same along this line, 904. This is also a different isobar, 900 millibar. This is also different isobar. It's 908 millibar. So, but it's high pressure and it's low pressure, and pressure gradient force is from higher pressure to the low pressure region. So pressure gradient force in this direction, but the centrifugal force the Coriolis force is towards right to the motion. So this is Coriolis force, this is Coriolis force, this is Coriolis force. But here at situation 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I'm considering at point 1, the Coriolis force is not exactly opposite to the pressure gradient force. So they are not going to balance as such. So the wind will follow some curved path. Here, even we have the Coriolis force is not equal to the pressure gradient force. Here also at the fourth point, but at point number 5, the pressure gradient force and the Coriolis force, they are in opposite direction, and they are equal in magnitude. They will cancel each other. So wind will follow non-verse. The wind will follow a straight path. It's going to follow the isobar. So it will be the geostopic wind when the pressure gradient force and the Coriolis force will be equal in amount and opposite in direction. So because of the balance, that the wind is going to follow a straight path after point number 5. Before that, the two forces were not balancing, but after point 5, they were balancing each other, and it is geostopic winds. Now we are moving to the next slide. Once again, here we have the isobars. They are not the parallel, they are not straight lines. Or suppose if I consider this line, this is isobar, this is 940 millibar. This is again an isobar, it's 944 millibar, but 44. But two different isobars, they are not straight, they are curved ones. So here they are closer, and here they are apart. So the pressure, you can say the density over here, the density of the isobars is low over here, and the density of isobars is high over here. So the wind is blowing from the low density region to the high density region. So when wind is blowing from low density region to the high density region, its speed will increase, of course. It's just like if water is flowing out of a pipe, suppose, and if I block a bit pipe from the end, then the speed of the water coming out of the pipe, that will be a bit more. It will be greater and greater as I go on squeezing that part at the end. At the area of cross section that decreases, the speed of the water that increases. So it's just like that. The density of the isobars that increases, the speed of the wind that will increase. That's for sure. So if I consider the wind is blowing from west to east, here I'm considering north, here it is west, it's south, it's east. This is the place, suppose. So this is a weak flow, this is strong flow because of the increase in the density of the isobars. So here the pressure gradient force and the centrifugal force, they were balancing each other. They are balancing, and as it moves, the speed of the wind that will increase, and because of the increase in the speed, the Coriolis force will also increase. So still the two forces, the pressure gradient force and the Coriolis force, they're going to balance, and still it is going to follow a straight path. So it will be a geostatic wind once again, because the isobars, they are not straight. The density that is increasing, and because of that speed increasing, because of speed increasing, the Coriolis force is increasing, but the pressure gradient force is also increasing. So in the same amount, but in the opposite direction, but they are balancing each other, so the wind is going to follow a straight path still. So it's geostatic wind once again. Now moving to the next slide now. So here we once again the same. It's the low pressure region, 104 millibar, 108 millibar, 1000. Rather, it's not 100, it's 1000, 1004, 1008, 1012 millibar. So it's a low pressure region, and when the wind is starting from this point, the Coriolis force is acting right to the motion. It's going to follow this path. It's going to follow the isobar, I can say. It's a cyclonic flow, and here from high pressure region, it's moving away from the high pressure region to the low pressure region. So the Coriolis force is to right to the motion, right to the motion, right to the motion. So it's again going to follow a circular path. So it's anti-cyclonic flow, and it is the cyclonic flow if they are the gradient winds in the northern hemisphere. I'm considering northern hemisphere cyclonic and the anti-cyclonic winds. And if I consider the southern hemisphere, the sense of rotation will get reversed. That for sure. Now I'm moving to the next slide. There are the actual pictures of the sea in the northern and southern hemisphere. So the sense of the cyclone in the southern hemisphere, and in the northern hemisphere they're in the opposite direction. That shows that our study that relates with the actual factual results on the surface of Earth. That this is the geographical effect of the Coriolis force that we see. Now I'm moving to the next slide. So here we have the wind aloft in the southern hemisphere, and northern hemisphere as well. So if I consider this line, this is equator. So this portion is the north, and this portion is the south. It is in the northern hemisphere. It is in the southern hemisphere, and I am considering at some altitude. Okay, up above. I am considering over here. Suppose now what happens? High pressure at the equator and low pressure both at the north and the south poles. So here we have high pressure, here we have low pressure. At the equator, of course, above the equator, here we have high pressure regions, and near the poles we have the low pressure region. What will happen? The pressure given force that will be from high pressure to the low pressure, from high pressure to the low pressure. So it's away from the equator towards the south pole as well as towards the north pole. So the wind is trying to blow from equator towards the north pole. The wind is trying to blow from the equator towards the south pole. Now what will happen? Now the wind is trying to blow from equator to the north pole, but the force, Coriolis force, will come into play, and it is acting right to the motion. So it will get deflected right to the motion. In the southern hemisphere as well, it will get deflected towards the left to the motion. But in both the cases, the wind will appear to come from the west. So these are the westerly winds which will appear to come either we consider the northern hemisphere or we consider the southern hemisphere. So westerly winds are there in both the hemispheres. Next, the surface winds, once again, we are considering, but important factor what we are considering, that is the frictional force. So if I consider friction, friction is going to be opposite to the motion. So if I consider surface wind to be along this direction, this is the direction, friction will be in the backward direction, opposite to the motion. And Coriolis force in this direction, and the pressure gradient force is in this direction. So these are the forces, the direction of the forces which are given over here. But as we consider the frictional force in this direction, opposite to the motion, so what will happen? It will try to decrease the speed of the wind. The speed of the wind will decrease because of this frictional force. Had that frictional force were not there, the speed of the wind that would have remained the same. But and in that case, the wind would have followed a straight path because the pressure given force and the Coriolis force, they are going to balance. But now, as the speed of the wind is decreasing because of the friction, the Coriolis force is no longer going to balance the pressure given force. So if it is no longer going to balance that, the wind is not going to follow a straight path. It will get some curved. If we have low pressure region over here, and if we consider a small cross section, then the motion will be in this sense, because it will not follow this isobar now. It will cross the isobar. Now it's crossing the isobar, it's crossing the isobar, it's crossing the isobar, because the Coriolis force is no longer going to balance the pressure gradient force. Of course, towards the low pressure, it's going to cross this isobar, as well as if I consider high pressure, it's going to cross the isobar. So it's not going to follow the straight path, it's going to follow the curved path because of the friction. Friction is going to play the role. Now we are moving to the next slide. Now, here we have, suppose we have, we don't know which hemisphere it is, and is the low pressure region and it's the high pressure region, and I come to know that the wind is blowing and it is circulating in the anti-clockwise sense and away from the high. Suppose we have high pressure region, it is anticyclonic type. I will definitely say that it's a northern hemisphere, because in the northern hemisphere, the force, because of the Coriolis force, the circulation towards the low pressure region. At the low pressure region, of course, the circulation is anti-clockwise. But if I consider a high pressure region, it is going to be anticyclone, that is, it's cyclic one. So definitely I'm going to say that it is the northern hemisphere. Had that been the southern hemisphere, the sense of rotation would have been different, would have been opposite. So I can judge that in which hemisphere it's working. Now we are considering the vertical motion. So if I consider here the low pressure region, the air from the surrounding that will come over here, so it will circulate and come over here. Now here the pressure, the air will the amount of air will increase, so it will move up and it will diverge here over here. So secondly, if I consider high pressure region, so the air which is circulating, it will move away from this place. So what will happen? The air from the higher altitude one, that will move in the downward direction. So it converges over here. So it is the vertical air motion, convergence and divergence, and it is all because of the Coriolis force. Because of the Coriolis force, it's circulating and it's coming over here, so it is moving up, and here the air is moving away, so here the air by magnitude is becoming less. So from higher altitudes, the air is converging toward the place. So it's the vertical motion of air, and it is all because of the Coriolis force. Next slide, I'm moving now. Now, if I consider with the altitude, so pressure gradient force, if it balances the force due to gravity, the two forces they are balancing, so there will be no vertical motion. Here it is altitude, it's height wise, I'm saying. So pressure gradient force and the force due to gravity, they're balancing each other, so they will follow a straight path. They will follow isobaric surfaces. But if somehow this the two forces, they do not balance, what I'm saying, on an average, gravity is balancing the pressure gradient force. It's hydrostatic equilibrium. But if there are small deviations, that means the pressure gradient force that is not going to balance the gravity, then it's not, the wind is not going to follow straight paths. They will move in upward direction. That means height wise, that means altitude effect will be there. So hydrostatic equilibrium, that will be disturbed. Small deviations, they will be there in the vertical direction. Of course, it will be few centimeter per second. Next slide, I'm moving now. So here are the references. Here are the references for the PPT from where I am. Most of them I made myself, but from the net I've downloaded the few one. And these are the two books that I followed for the considering the Coriolis course. So these are the references that I'm considering. That's all about this. And, thank you.